How about that? It looks like Howie Roseman has brought back his right-hand man back to Philadelphia. We're talking Nick Sirianni's extension, and we're going to be talking about a trade that needs to stop being talked about from these reports coming out. And we need to put this thing in the casket and nail it 6 feet under the ground, because that's where it has to be, because it makes no sense. We're going to talk about it, so let's get straight into it.
A killer buried, but not dead.
Darren, we better turn around. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what is going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. So a lot to discuss. We have OTAs in the coming days, very close, and let's get the training camp as fast as possible. I want to see the competition kind of unveil in front of our eyes. Now, with the first bit of news I want to talk about today is the Eagles are bringing back a familiar face. Howie Roseman is bringing back his right-hand man, and this was from Jeff McClain. Joe Douglas is now signed with the Philadelphia Eagles front office. Now, with the Eagles from 2016 to 2019, he was senior scouting. Okay, so he was in charge. He was the senior scout guy. Was always at the press conferences with Howie Roseman. You know, the head. You know, how Nick Sirianni's with Howie Roseman at these press conferences when it comes to end of the year, or the draft, or combine, or first night of the draft, whatever. Now Joe Douglas will be heavily involved. Okay, if you guys remember, we lost a couple of scouting people this past offseason, like literally a week or two ago. And got jobs, somewhere else. So I guess the Eagles are trying to fill those spots as of right now. And I'm guessing Joe is going to go back to his original position, which I'm probably guessing. But I like Joe. We won our first Super Bowl with Joe Douglas. Okay. And I thought he had a pretty good draft in 2018. When you think about Avonte Maddox, obviously a good pick that, was nice in the beginning, got injured a lot, and then kind of fell off later on. Dallas Goedert was good for us, still good for us. Josh Sweat, Jordan Mailata. So I think that was a really solid draft in 2018 when he was here. And then he left. He went to the Jets as the new general manager. And I don't think he was really treated fairly over there, because they hired him after the Jets did free agency and a draft. And then they hired him. They fired their current GM after literally a draft that they just drafted. And ownership has been the big problem with the Jets. I don't think he has had a fair shake over there with them, and he was stuck with a bunch of big contracts. The year prior to Joe Douglas going to the Jets, the Jets had all this money, and they just went out and bought every free agent that they can get their hands on. The season went to shit. And then Joe Douglas he couldn't really do anything his first to his second year he was there. Because he was locked in on some of these contracts he couldn't really do much with. So the pieces kind of fell down from there, and, they just decided to fire him. Whatever Howie Roseman wants, he knows Joe more than we do. We just see where he goes and the jobs that he takes. We don't know anything that goes on behind the scenes, but I'm glad to see Big Joe is back with the Philadelphia Eagles to the front office, to whatever position they're going to put him at. So I think that was a really good signing from them, to be honest. And I was a little surprised. I knew he was fired, but I didn't know the Eagles would bring him back. And look, he's back now, which is great. So maybe Joe tried to get another GM job, just couldn't get it, unfortunately. So that's where we're at. Joe Douglas is back. If we finally get the news, it's official now that Nick Sirianni is now is now got his extension with the Eagles, which is great. It's been a long road with Nick. 2 Super Bowls, obviously 48-20 in the regular season, 54-23, third highest win percentage as a head coach. I think he's the first coach that has had assistants, 3 assistants that have become head coaches to other teams while he is still the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. This is what Jeffrey Lurie, so he put out a statement. This is what Jeffrey Lurie had to say. Now, he said, as an organization, we have always strived to create a championship culture of sustained success. Nothing is more important to fostering such an environment than having tremendous leadership. Nick has embodied everything we were looking for in a head coach since we hired him 4 years ago. His authentic style of leadership, football intelligence, passion for the game, and growth mindset have helped to bring out the best in our team. And I'm excited for what the future holds for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, I mean, look, we were expecting this. I mean, we never thought Nick was going to get fired, but we were kind of waiting for this news to come out. It's just kind of crazy how we went from an introductory press conference where we were kind of nervous a little bit because he kind of worried us of how nervous he was, the plants and the roots and all those memes that were coming out with him, and then you won a Super Bowl under him now, and you've been to 2 of them already, and you've been in the playoffs pretty much every single year he's been here. The most success we've had. But what I really like about Nick is that he's a very animated coach. He's a tough love coach, what he has to be. And, he's got a voice and he's a culture setter. I think that's the most important thing, as the culture setting aspect of it. Players believe in him, so I believe in him. And as long as the players do, then that's a really good sign. And at times when some of us fans, like myself, have given up on Nick in the past because of certain moments, the players never really gave up on him. Not because they pitied him, because they really believed in him. So everything that Jeffrey Lurie said is very much true. He makes sure the team is not too high. He makes sure that the team is not too low. They stay on a steady, medium path, not listen to the outside noise. Just put your head down, go to work. And do their thing. So Nick gets his extension. I don't know what the numbers are. It's probably a lot of money for a head coach. Yeah, probably. Nick is finally extended and it's finally official. So this has got to be put to bed. Okay, because everybody is talking about it. So there was rumors that says the Eagles have spoken to the Dolphins regarding a trade for cornerback Jalen Ramsey per Armando Salguero. Rams reportedly want to play. Ramsey reports wants to play for a winner. Okay, great. This is literally impossible. This makes no sense from just a player standpoint to a money standpoint on both sides, in my opinion. Now, the guy that leaked this or put this news out, Armando Salguero, I don't know. I think he's a senior writer for Fox, I think. I tried looking through the profile. I have no idea. So, he's got a big following. So, I don't know. I don't care about the big following thing anymore because a lot of these guys just say things to say it. Okay. Jalen Ramsey, from a player perspective, is just not going to happen because the shit that he talked about of Vic Fangio before he came to Philadelphia. Okay. When Xavier Howard was released off that team, Jalen Ramsey was very animated in what he had to say about Vic Fangio, that they weren't used right on the field. And, he was too hard of a coach. That Miami defense were a bunch of, they acted really weak towards it. And then we were kind of worried, like, is he really a bad coach? He gets to Philadelphia and we win a Super Bowl. One of the best defenses we've seen in a long time. Probably the second best defense in Eagles history, to be honest with you. From that perspective, it makes no sense why Vic would even want him and why Jalen even want to come here. Okay. Number two, the money. I mean, he's due 16.6 this year, 26.8 next year, and 36.1 the year after that. So the only way that this trade would actually happen realistically, and that's a big if, okay, Miami would have to pay a lot of this down. Unless the Eagles gave them like a second-round pick or something like that, maybe a second and a mid-round pick. The Eagles have 12 draft picks next year. So Miami would probably have interest in talking to the Eagles because of the draft compensation they have, and they know those picks aren't going to be great because the Eagles are going to win a lot of games next year. But, it just makes no sense to me. The last few days to last week to a few weeks ago, there's been little niblets of news coming out of Jalen Ramsey coming to the Eagles, but nothing's been officially official. Everything's just been third, and there's nothing wrong with talking about third-party news. Third party as in like reporters, beat writers, Schmo Joe from the gas station. I have no idea, but this is what you get with some of these reports. And you got to take things with a grain of salt. Obviously, but this just makes no sense to me. Like, do I feel good about Keely Ringo at cornerback too? Sure. I mean, I want him to win the job. You know what I mean? So you have a savvy vet that's behind him as a safety blanket. And sure, getting rid of Slay and not paying him his $10 million for 1 year where he went to the Steelers for, it's definitely a big loss. There's no doubt about it. Quinyon Mitchell is ready, thank God, having the season that he had last year and kind of being under Slay's wing. But really, the big question is, can Ringo win this spot? This is going to be a wait and see approach. We get through, obviously, OTAs, get through minicamp, and then really get into this training camp and see what he's got. Fangio, I think we have to trust in his judgment, what he sees from last year. I mean, you heard some of the reports. Remember A.J. Brown last offseason was like, Keely Ringo, you got to watch out for that kid. Just doesn't get enough reps. When you don't get reps, you're going to look like shit. That's just the way it is. Okay. Sidney Brown doesn't get any reps at safety. When he does, he didn't look great. You don't get the reps, you're going to look like shit. You're going to look horrible. That's just something you're going to have to, that's just something you got to deal with. If you're playing every single game and you're looking like crap and he's still the starter, then that's a problem. But when you're barely getting reps, you're barely getting opportunities, that's what happens. Now you have an opportunity to go into your third training camp, right? And now getting something done and showing us what he could do, okay? As an outside corner, as a number 2. The Jalen Ramsey nonsense has just got to stop. I don't know why people are even talking about it at this point. It makes no sense. Unless the Eagles give them like a really good draft pick. But, Jalen Ramsey is 3-4 years younger than Slay, so he's relatively young, which is good. But I just have no interest in it, man. Like, I want the youth movement the youth movement needs to prosper. It needs to keep this thing going, man. Other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. So we talked about Nick Sirianni's extension. We talked about Joe Douglas coming back, which is great. And the Jalen Ramsey news. Just these little splurts of news have been coming out the last couple of weeks. Maybe then another rumor last month. Just weird stuff. Other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Eagles news every single day. And make sure you hit the like button because it helps out tremendously. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Remember, shakes what up, follows. Peace out, guys.